So yesterday I wasn't able to record this, but we went through, just a recap, we did some things with print and puts, and we talked about some math and printing that out to the screen. We talked about how we can multiply strings together. We can multiply a single character together, which would be very useful for your assignment that's due, the header. And we talked about these special escape characters inside of strings and how the difference between a double quote and a single quote. And that's about where we got. So today I want to talk about how we can, we now know how to send data to the screen. We want to know how to get information from the keyboard, get information from somebody typing. So there's another method called gets. It's the opposite of puts. And what do you think the S means here? String, right? We're going to get a string from the keyboard. So that's a method. And I can assign that to a variable. Now, we talked a little bit about variables. Variables in Ruby, by convention, are all lowercase, and they're separated by underscores if you have multiple words. Okay, we don't use camel case in here, and you can't start it with an uppercase letter either. You'll see later on next quarter how important that is, because that's how we define classes. And it's a whole different type of variable that we deal with. So normally when I want to ask the user for something, I want to get that value from the keyboard and stuff it somewhere that I can play with later, right? So let's have a variable called age. And just like in Visual Basic, the stuff on the right-hand side of an assignment statement gets executed first. And the result of this method gets stuffed into this variable called age. All right? So normally, if I just run this like this, let's run my numbers. It doesn't show anything. But it's sitting here waiting. Notice the program didn't stop. It sits there and waits until I type something on the keyboard and hit the Enter key. So I have to type 50, and I hit the Enter key. Once I do that, the program finishes, because I didn't tell it to do anything else. So the program took that 50 and stuffed it into my age variable here. All right, so it makes sense that when I say we want to prompt the user for something, we have to tell them what we're asking about, right? So we're going to say something like print enter your age. And now I'll run it, and let's see what happens. So it says enter your age. And in RubyMine, I have to click down here because that's where the caret is. It's sitting there waiting for me to type something in. So I can type in 50. And when I hit return, this method finishes and stuffs the value of whatever I typed on the keyboard into age. All right? So how can I, just to show you something early on, what are the string methods that I can use to tell the length of a string? Okay, so I could say puts age.length, and that will print out what value do you think? The length of whatever I type. So in this case, if I typed this, what would the value be? Who says 2? Who says something else? What are you saying if you're saying something else? 3, okay. Who says 3? Oh, you guys are non-committal. That's very good. All right, let's see what happens.
It depends if there's a space.
All right, I'm going to type 5, 0, return, and it comes out with 3. Why is it 3?
Because of the space?
No, I didn't type a space. The carriage return. The carriage return is always sent because that's a keystroke on the keyboard. So that all of that plus the carriage return is sent to the program. And so age has the characters 5, 0, and a carriage return in it. So that's 3 characters. Everybody see that?
So Dave's 3.
No, it's going to print 3. If I say puts age, if I say print age, and then say print Dave, just so we can see what it looks like, and I type 50, it printed 50, even though I said print, which doesn't put a carriage return here. The carriage return is inside the variable. It's part of that string that age has, 50 carriage return. So when I print it back out to the screen says, oh, you want a carriage return there, and it prints it out. Does that make sense?
Question: How would you go about making a? I don't want to say program. Something that would take and say you'd have it would print out, you'd enter your age and everything.
That's what.
And it'd say, hey, your name is this, and you were born in this year.
That's what we're working on.
Really?
Yes.
Woohoo!
Are you not paying attention here?
Oh,
This
no,
is
I'm
exactly
paying-
what we're
I'm
writing
paying
here.
attention.
All right, so
But,
the point is that gets everything I type on the keyboard and stuffs it into the variable, whatever I assign that to. All right? So it's very common that I want to take that value and get rid of the carriage return. At the point where I get the value from the user is the place I want to get rid of that. So there happen to be some nice methods. And since we talked about yesterday, what is the value of this method? What data type gets returned from this method? A string, okay? So it's a string, I can do stringy things with it, right? It's a string object, and I can use the dot notation to chain another method on the end of this string before I stuff it into my age variable. And there's a nice one called chomp. Okay, chomp, what it does is it takes off the last character of the string if and only if that character is a carriage return. All right? So if I had 50 in the string, it wouldn't do anything to it. If I had 50 carriage return, it would return the string 50. Everybody see that? It takes off the last character only if there's a carriage return at the end of it. All right? So now if I run this, and I type the same thing, 50, enter, 3 characters. I chomped it first, so it took off the carriage return. Now age has 2 characters, 5 and a 0. And when I print it, it printed it on the same line without the carriage return here.
That's because you chomped it?
That's because I chomped it. That took away the carriage return.
How would you add the carriage return but chomp the value?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Make it
I
so-
can.
Make it so the 50 and the Dave are on 2 separate lines.
Oh,
but
well,
make
how
it
would I do that?
chomp.
Good question. How do I do that?
Put an enter on the Dave.
I would change this to puts. That would be the easiest way, right? Because puts adds a carriage return to whatever I'm printing on the line here.
We're not here for easy. We're here for...
All right, so we say 50, and it puts it on 3 different lines here.
Yay!
Okay? So let's talk a little bit more. Any questions on anything I've done here so far? And I'll try to repeat the question. Yes, Desiree.
What if you just put a puts instead of after on the next line?
This one?
That one?
Oh, just by itself?
Line by itself?
Okay.
Would you be knocked down for points on that, just to have that space? Or that
Well,
line?
what that will do is it'll put another blank line after Dave. So when I run that, it just adds another line. So no, I'm not worried about that kind of stuff. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? All right. So what type of value is the variable age? What data type is held in that value? No. What did I assign to age? Okay. In Ruby, we don't have to declare our variables first. They spring out of existence the first time they're used. Okay, the first time we assign something to that variable, then it becomes the data that I stuff into it. So they're very variable. They're very variable variables. All right. If I change it and assign a number to the variable age, then it's going to hold a number. It now becomes a number, and I can do number type stuff with it. So you can change it throughout the program. Now, hardcore old-time programmers don't like that because they like their variables to stay the same. And you see, anybody here in C#? You'll see you have to cast everything. If I want to convert one thing to another, I'm casting the heck out of it. You're always having these casting statements, which convert one variable to another. And I don't have to do a lot of that in Ruby, and it makes my programs really nice and elegant. I can do some fun stuff with that. But you have to remember what is in my variable at the time. So I can't say, let's say I want to print out I want to add how many years let's see, days I am alive. Okay, so if I put in 50, that should multiply by 365. So what's going to print out? Okay, and what is in age? Whatever I type, I'm assuming I'm going to keep typing 50 here. Very good, very good. It's going to keep typing 50. So because it's a string, it's going to type 50505050 because the multiplication of a string is the same thing as adding the string up multiple times, right? It's a multiple concatenation. So the age variable, if I want to actually do calculations on it, I have to convert that variable from a string into an integer. All right? So what type of variable is this here?
String.
String, okay. So I can do stringy things with it. And if you look up the string, there's a method called .toI. Okay? ToI takes a string as an argument here, and I'm calling the method ToI returns, what do you think it returns? An integer. So now what type of data is stored in the age variable? An integer. So if I run this now, what's this going to have?
Age 50 times.
It's going to actually be a mathematical, some number of days that I am old, right? Which is going to be a big number. Ah. All right. So I have a different error because I was trying to find the length of age, but at this point, age changed. What type of variable is age again? Integer. I can't do a length method on an integer. I can only do a length method on a string variable. So this is no longer a useful piece, so I'm going to just comment it out.
Can I ask why?
Why I can't do a length on a string, on an integer? Because it doesn't have any value. There's no method defined for that. It's just the way it is. I mean, I can't do that. I'd have to convert it to a string and then call the length on it if I wanted to do something like that. So just can't do it. There's no method defined for that. So now it prints out Dave and 18,250 days old, roughly.
That's not bad.
Not too bad. I'm almost dead, but not quite. All right, so I want you now to take this program that I wrote and print out, I want it to ask the person for their age, ask the person for their name. So let's say ask for age, ask for name, and then I want you to print something like this, whatever their name is. Dave is seconds old. All right? So you're going to have to do the math to figure that out, do all the calculations and the conversions, and I want you to print out something that looks like this. All right, go. I will pause. So you've all had a chance to try that. Let's show you how I would write it. So we need to first ask them for their age. So we have to prompt them. So I'm going to send something to the screen first. Please enter your age. And then right after that, I want to get the value that they typed. So I need to store that. Age equals gets. And since I want to use it as a number, I want to convert it to an integer right away. Now, I can do .chomp.2i, but if I just do a .2i, if I know I'm going to convert it to a number anyway, the .2i will ignore the carriage return anyway. So calling the chomp is redundant if I'm going to convert it to an integer anyway. So I'm just going to say gets.2i. Then I'm going to say print, please enter your name. And in this case, I'll set up a variable called name, and I want to call gets to that. And almost always I call a chomp on that. Almost always I don't want the carriage return inside my variable because it messes up my formatting later on. So you want to get rid of that carriage return immediately when you're getting the data from the user. All right, so now I've got the two pieces of data from the user. Now I can do my calculations. So I could say, I could do it a bunch of different ways. I could create a new variable called seconds old, and I would multiply my age that I got, which is a number, times 365, times how many hours in a day, times how many minutes in an hour, times how many seconds in an hour, in a minute, sorry. And that becomes a variable that has all of this calculated and stuffed into my seconds old variable. So now, what type of data type is seconds old? An integer. All right, good. So now I just can print all this data out. I can say, let's call puts, and I can do this. I can do this multiple ways, and we'll show you two ways. I can say name, and I can add to that is, and then how many seconds they are. But seconds is a number, an integer, and I can't add an integer to a string. So I have to convert this integer back to a string in order to print it back out. So I can say name is seconds old dot to s. Okay, to s takes a number and converts it to a string. Then I can add to that, what else did I say? Seconds old. All right, so let's run that and see if that works. Enter my age. Well, this is the top part here. So enter my age, 50. My name is Dave. Dave is one heck of a big number of seconds old, right? 1.5 billion seconds old. Is that right? No. That does make me feel old, yeah, a little old. All right, so that's one way to do that. The other way is like we talked about yesterday, using this interpolation, okay? In a double-quoted string, I can add this sharp and a braces and have a Ruby expression inside of these braces. So I can make this a little nicer if I do it this way. Puts name is seconds old. All right? So the sharp brace name will evaluate to whatever's stored in the variable name, which is Dave. And then the sharp brace seconds old evaluates to whatever's in seconds old. And that makes one long string, and it prints it out. So that should be the same. Let's. I don't have to cast it or convert it or anything. It's a lot nicer that way. So let's get rid of that one, rerun it. So I'm 50, I'm Dave, and those are the two different ways. Comes out exactly the same. All right? Any questions on that? So the other thing is I don't have to store it in another variable. I can take this calculation and replace it here. This will evaluate. Ruby takes the stuff between the braces, evaluates it first, comes up with a number, converts it to a string for me, and then it'll be exactly the same. Okay? So that's two or three different ways to do that. So that's basically what your header assignment is. It's very simple. You're asking for 5 variables, you're printing out some asterisks around some fixed data. Same thing with the payroll calculation. You're asking for some numbers, and you're going to do some calculations using floating point numbers instead, which we'll do some more of that tomorrow. Any questions on any of this? Nope. All right, that's it.